Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 10 today for the French Grand Prix in Season 1. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Canadian Grand Prix, uploaded yesterday, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. A really quite exciting one. We had DRS failure in that one, and that made things quite a lot tougher for us, but in the end, we came back through and fought right all the way to the end. The last few, we've kind of made some moves on the last laps, and it's all been rather exciting, but now we've got the French Grand Prix coming up, and obviously we'll kind of see how that goes. But on last year's game, the AI were very good around Paul Ricard, so wary of that in qualifying and the race as well. But at the start of this episode, don't have enough cash to really spend anything on any HQ upgrades here, under 2 million, even like the lower down ones, don't have enough money there. So at the moment, just waiting for that cash to come in, and probably by the end of the next episode, the end of this episode rather, into the next one, we'll have plenty of cash then to maybe purchase another HQ upgrade. Although, to be fair, I think we did 2 in a row in 2 episodes, so there was going to be a point where we kind of awkwardly don't have enough cash for anything. But what we do have is a lot of time on our hands on the activity timeline here. Compared to the last few episodes, we've actually got a very chunky length of time to the next Grand Prix here on the timeline calendar, so we can pick out a lot of different events. So, surprise, surprise, going to go for a sponsor event, which will improve the team acclaim. That's going to cost us a little bit of money, though, so at the same time, I'm going to think about going for this bottom right-hand side activity, the second driver filming. That'll boost his acclaim, Schumacher's, and also get us some cash to, basically spend on that sponsor event. And the same thing on the left-hand side, a kind of funded team event. That costs some money. Essentially, if you look close enough, the cash we'll get from the PR filming on the right-hand side activity, that will actually pay for the 2 events we're doing for the team fund and the sponsor event. So in the end, we don't actually spend any money, and we boost the acclaim of not only our team, also Schumacher himself, and also get the morale of every department going nice and high, which is always good. Trying to keep a balance, as I always have. I think so far in this career mode, I'm yet to do an activity that has had a negative impact on morale on any department, so I've kind of had a nice balancing act there. But obviously, I think at some point there'll be inevitably a moment in this career where I do have to do one of those events if they just don't give us the kind of random events selected. It's all kind of random generated of what you can do between these Grand Prix, and of course the timeline kind of length also affects things. So, but at the moment, so far, we've done a decent job of keeping the morale nice and kind of equal with everyone. Everyone's kind of happy. We're not kind of pissing anyone off at the factory, basically, the team. But we go through the timeline then. I was really hoping we could generate enough weekly resource points to maybe purchase that other major air upgrade, because if you watched last episode, we did purchase a major front downforce upgrade. You can see that it's pending on the bottom of the tree. That will come in time for next episode, but then the other major one, it's obviously a little bit too expensive there, so still waiting for that. So that was a bit of a shame. We might be able to buy it halfway through, though, this race weekend, essentially, once we get to France and do the practice programs and such. But I was tempted to maybe purchase a chassis upgrade, but, even though we are a little bit weak on the chassis front, having looked at it on, on that chart there, I really don't think that's actually one of our major issues right now. I really don't think the chassis is the thing to be looking at right now. It is the aero. I feel like we're just lacking a lot of brute front downforce and rear downforce, just basically able to chuck the car a bit, more aggressively through the corners. Engine-wise, I think we're fine. We're still like halfway house, like the best Honda engine on the grid, I'm pretty sure. So that's no, kind of no issue for me. It's really just the aero side. Once we got those 2 major upgrades done, though, then I might think about doing some more chassis upgrades on the tyre wear, or maybe the weight kind of reduction and whatnot. But we come through into the race weekend of the French Grand Prix. And like I said, halfway through the weekend, we can maybe afford it. Because here we are. You've joined us after the practice sessions. We've done the practice programs, got enough R&D. And so now we have bought the rear major downforce. Now, that is going to take a further 2 kind of races or episodes, or like a whole month in the calendar time, essentially. So we'll have this one major front downforce upgrade in for next episode. And then this one will take a further episode, I think. So we should have basically back-to-back major downforce upgrades on the front and then the rear for the British Grand Prix and then the Austrian Grand Prix. So that'll be quite nice. It'll be a little bit annoying to maybe not have that fine balance of having the 2 upgrades come at once, but you can't have everything, obviously, and we didn't really... It was going to be no point of saving up and waiting to purchase both at the same time, because one, that'll probably mean that one of them will definitely fail if we're trying them simultaneously, and then 2, there's no point waiting because you're just wasting time that you could be developing the parts, essentially. So we've now transitioned into Q1 then of qualifying. qualifying and seeing how we do on this opening first flying lap. And I must say, Sector 1, I think, again, I can't be sure, but I feel like they've altered it a little bit, as they have done for a lot of circuits, subtly altered the kind of width of the track. And so that Sector 1 was a little bit less flowing, actually, I felt, at the end of the sector into Sector 2 with that slingshot. And then in Sector 3, that was, I'm pretty sure, all the same as last year's game, but just the car was not feeling too great in that last sector. You can see the understeer there, the awkwardness of trying to get the car turned round and kind of placing it in the right way for that last brake zone is so tricky anyway, let alone with this car in this year's game, you know, with, like I said, with a lack of downforce, unable to move it how I want it to mid-corner. So that first lap wasn't really that great. Schumacher has beaten us, although, to be fair, it's actually quite close, only like, you know, a few hundredths in that. So if we improve by 1/10, we could go faster than Schumacher, and honestly, by improving by 1/10 alone will probably be the challenge in itself. You can see we do gain some time, but then we kind of lose it again, and then we're pretty much on the teetering edge of either gaining or pretty much not getting even any faster on this second flying lap. So it is going to be a struggle here, Paul Ricard. You know, qualifying was difficult at Canada. That was, you know, I felt the car didn't have any flow there. I thought that was bad. Here at Paul Ricard, it really was kind of a case of I'm trying my utmost hardest to place this car around the circuit, but looking at the top right, not gaining any time here, so we bail out last minute, a bit of a cheeky cut across to bail out this second flying lap, because there's no point going and continuing that lap, because we're going to be slower. We were slow by 1/10.5 there. So we're now in the last dying embers of Q1. We're still slower than Schumacher. We're down in second last place. So we've got it all to do. So here we are then at the very end of our third and final flyer. Checkered flag has fallen, and we're still not really finding any time. The only crucial thing is we're not, you know, negative by 1/10. So I finished the lap off, and under braking, we're going to rotate the car a little bit quicker there, and with a lock-up, get the nose turned in, get a good exit, DRS open. We gain 2/10 alone on the last corner and go across the line to improve the lap time, go quicker than our teammate Mick Schumacher, but it's only going to be P20, so although it's quicker than our teammate, it's not massively quicker than anyone else really. So a bit of a shame there, and we've been out-qualified by one of the Williams cars. So this is probably the biggest reality check we've had so far, maybe going back to the Dutch GP at Zandvoort, but this is concerning. I hope the race pace is a lot better, or we're going to have to try something very clever on the strategy to even try and get up into, like, you know, P14, 15, 13 region. So, yeah, I don't know. The French Grand Prix, though, historically, though, has been a tough one for me personally, especially over one lap in qualifying. Last year, I found, like, the AI was so hard around this circuit in qualifying, and so it's carried forward, I would say, into this game. So, let's just not count our chickens too early and see how it goes on Sunday. But let's go to the grids. We've got a lot of work to do.
Welcome along then to France, host of the world-famous Tour de France. But we're not talking two wheels today, we're talking four, in a country widely thought of as giving birth to the art of motor racing back in the late 1800s. We've come a long way since then, and you're about to find out how far. It's time for the French Grand Prix. 6 lefts and 9 rights give us a total of 15 corners here at the circuit Paul Ricard, and a lap covers an overall distance of 3.6 miles. Average speeds will be somewhere in the region of 142 miles per hour, and they'll be maxing out on the Mistral Straight at around 205 miles per hour. And I'm joined once again by Anthony Davidson to bring you the lowdown for today's race. Can we begin by having a chat about Charles Leclerc? As ever, the threat of unreliability is never far away, and indeed they'll be starting out of position today due to a power unit component change. So it's going to be a difficult task to move forward from there.
Everyone has to deal with penalties or reliability issues from time to time throughout their career. You just have to suck up the pain and get on with the job at hand. Today isn't about performing a miracle to put the car back where it should be. It's about effective damage limitation.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Vettel, Verstappen, Alexander Albon, and Sainz, Stroll, Norris, Perez, and Daniel Kvyat. Gasly, Raikkonen, Esteban Ocon, and Leclerc. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Grosjean, Ricciardo, Kevin Magnussen, and George Russell. A Mercedes, Schumacher, Latifi, and Antonio Giovinazzi starts from the back of the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
So once again, Crofty called me a Mercedes on the grid sequence, but I definitely did not have the pace of a Mercedes at all yesterday on Saturday. But race day may be a different story. It's very overcast, and the strategy is interesting. There was a two-stop available, and it did perk my eyes a little bit, but then, and you can see I selected it actually originally, but then I thought more about it. Our pace is not good enough to make an extra pit stop in this Grand Prix. We're going to have to try and do what we did at China maybe, try and get track position, hold some people up, and try and defend. And to be fair, I remembered we did this a lot last year on F1 2019 with Paul Ricard, where the one stop was so powerful because the track position, it's very hard to pass around Paul Ricard, even in a quicker car. You know, if you get the ERS right, maybe the DRS as well, and good straight line speed, you can keep some cars behind. So I think that's the best bet for us. Try and jump some people just by staying out longer. And there were a load of people on two stops in the top 10, and like with everyone else, because I've looked on the race director, everyone around me is going to start on the mediums and do this one stop. So all of us will be trying to get that track position. That's the only annoying thing, that everyone's going to try this strategy, so we won't be alone in this thing. So it's going to be a big fight. But here we go then to 5 red lights to the French Grand Prix here at a very doom and gloomy Paul Ricard. But 5 red lights are out nonetheless, and we're underway for round 10 of season 1 of our My Team career mode. It's a good start for us, as has been the case all season. Really decent getaway, good traction, use some ERS into turn 1, late on the brakes, trying to go toe-to-toe with the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. Bit of a oversteer kicking in there as the track undulates a little bit, and we're just trying to find our feet in the Grand Prix. The Haas, though, Magnussen very quick on the inside, but we go sailing around him, and we're going to try and get Grosjean. Very close stuff with obviously one of the home favourites. We've got 3 French drivers in this Grand Prix, and we've just gone around the outside of 2 of them, as we've got Esteban Ocon, our main rival in the season now. We've just done him. He's been caught napping, and we've got him and up the position. So a very good lap 1 once again, making the most of it. Kind of a Fernando Alonso style start, you know, wrestling the car up the grid on the higher fuel, up into P15 momentarily, I must say, because Ocon is giving us a good old fight here. So our new rival, unlike Grosjean, we're really meeting him on circuit and directly battling him a lot of the time ever since I picked him out as my rival for the kind of next few races of this season. But we maintain the position ahead of Esteban, and now we can just try and settle in, hopefully use this clean air to catch up to the car ahead, which is his teammate Dan Ricciardo, although that's easier said than done, because look at this, Ocon comes back at us once again on the outside there in sector 3. We're a little bit slow, a little bit off camber there on the left-hander, but we just keep the racing line and maintain the P15. But for how long is the question? On lap number 3, DRS activated, we're within 1 second of Ricciardo, but Ocon's flying. He's used a load more overtake mode for sure. I just am too stubborn at this stage of the Grand Prix to do that, and we don't need to, because we make a massive dive into that next corner. Then he go completely off circuit, but we somehow just about slow down the car enough to maintain the P15. But you can already see now there's already a bit of a pack breaking away, and I'm leading this bottom pack. So the pace very much is not the same as Canada, not the same as any of the previous Grand Prix. It's kind of almost feeling like a Zandvoort at this stage, I'm going to be honest, in terms of they're already pulling away from us. But the obviously the second phase of this stint could be a different story. You can see we are now starting to catch up a little bit as these guys are fighting. Raikkonen has already overtaken Gasly. Now Ricciardo has done so. So the 3rd Frenchman in this Grand Prix, not feeling too punchy here. And Gasly's struggling for pace. He's fallen back. He was ahead of both those guys, and he's falling now into our clutches. So as we start to push away a little bit from that pack of Grosjean and Ocon, we're catching up to Gasly here. So he could maybe overtake the AlphaTauri and get up into what will be P11 now, as there were a few people already in for a pit stop. So you can see the soft tires really did not go long for those guys in the top 10. And now we're on the back of Gasly. Good rhythm through turns 1 and 2. Down the hill now. We're going to send it through and just try and thread the needle. And Gasly gives us the room. And so we're going to be side by side through the next long right-hander, the slingshot onto the back straight. We're going to be really not in a great place to get a good exit there. Gasly gets the place back, but crucially, we're behind with the DRS. We used a little bit of overtake mode. We'll use a little bit more just to push us along and get us alongside Pierre. And so here we are into the brake zone very late as we can, and we swoop through up into P11. Gasly has a little look though on the outside. He's still there in the mirrors, but we're going to use a bit more overtake mode and just maintain maintain that position. So up into P11, good stuff there. So we've overtaken all 3 French drivers at their home GP. So I'll call that some sort of success if we can't get points today. But I speak too early because GASLY flies past us on lap number 8 then with DRS, and using plenty of overtake mode, I'm sure we saved some, and that's for this part of the circuit. I feel like we're quicker here than we actually are down that main straight, so we use a lot of ERS, and I'm just hoping it can be enough to push us through and get us alongside. Yes, it will. So close on the left-hand side. We're literally side by side through what is a flat-out right-hander, wheel-to-wheel stuff, banging tyres with Pierre Gasly. It's all getting a little bit frosty, as you would imagine, as it always does. It seems to always happen with Gasly. Now the next left-hander, lot of understeer, huge amount there. We get the car just about turned in, but Gasly bar. Oh, Gasly's round. Oh, Gasly's hit the Williams car, and it's all gone so wrong for one of the home favourites of this Grand Prix, and I'm pretty sure that was maybe also something to do with me. I think Gasly, he didn't spin it on his own. I think he tapped my rear end, and so, surprise, surprise, once again in the F1 game, myself and Gasly come to wars, but that is nothing. I feel like that's a massive racing incident. Gasly, he's seen me understeer. He should know I'm going to try and keep it within the white lines on the circuit. I'm not just going to drive off onto the runoff area and continue the racing line there. So I don't know why he was trying that. He should have let off the throttle and turned his car a lot more sharper left than he did. And so that's just a racing incident. He spun around just due to the tyres tapping, and then in the end he's collected by one of the Williams cars. So big shame there for Pierre Gasly. And so any of you guys who are placing a bet of how long it would take for me and Gasly to come towards in this year's game series, well, who had 10 episodes, let me know in the comments below. Our race continues then on lap number 9. We're ahead of Grosjean now in P5. We've jumped up that position as a load of people in the top flight have made their pit stops, including that Mercedes car just behind the Renault of Ocon. Ocon and Grosjean now having a battle as Hamilton comes out just behind those two. So every top team is behind us right now as it stands. So that's how powerful maybe the track position could be in this Grand Prix come that second phase of the GP. But right now we watch on Ocon and Grosjean battling, and Ocon gets the better of his compatriot. So that helps us out. That gives us some breathing room, you can see there, to kind of push away and just try and maintain this P5 position, or P4 actually as it now, as Hamilton's pit. And up ahead of us in P3 is Daniel Ricciardo still, Raikkonen in second place. And do you want to know who's leading the Grand Prix? It's Daniel KVYAT in the AlphaTauri. Absolutely insane. This is why this one stop is maybe going to be quite powerful. You've got the likes of KVYAT in first place, Raikkonen second, Ricciardo third, we're in P4, Ocon's P5. So you can see the tyre wear now is kicking in lap 12. It may be time to come in, but, you know, this strategy may actually work out really well because we're getting such a bonkers track position. Like, you know, for KVYAT to be out in first place, I think that's the first time in one of these Grand Prix where one of the midfield guys or bottom guys has gained the lead, because every single time up until this race, every time the top guys have pit, they've always come out still in the lead. Whereas this race, I don't know what it is, but just the tyre wear maybe of the soft tyres or what, we're able to actually maintain some sort of lead, you know, once the top guys have pit. So this is why the one stop could end up being a masterclass for not only us, but everyone ahead of me, which is kind of unfortunate because obviously we're fighting the likes of AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo and such in the championship. So those guys, if KVYAT finishes up high place, he's going to be laughing all the way to the end of the day with the amount of points he might get. But anyways, whilst we exited the pit lane, you saw there Antonio Giovinazzi retired out of this Grand Prix. So that's one less Alfa Romeo to worry about, although to be fair, Giovinazzi was behind us, so I wasn't too worried about him. The real worry, like I said just then, is going to be Ricciardo, Raikkonen and KVYAT. You know, they actually have some good pace. I cannot catch them at the moment, and I wasn't catching them that entire first half of that Grand Prix. So they actually might have a very good chance of scoring some high points, which is bad news for us. We get up into P14 as the others around us make their first pit stop onto hard tyres. And now, on that 14 onto 15, is the start of the top guys, quote-unquote, sort of pitting for their second stop. And this is where it gets interesting as we come ahead of both Verstappen and Sergio Perez. We come out just behind Vettel. I tried my hardest to try and dive down the inside there. I used some extra ERS. I don't know why I was trying to fool myself if I could try and get Vettel. Even if I did, well, you know, what was I thinking was going to happen? He was going to overtake me very easily probably on this next pit straight. But Bottas and Vettel jump us both, but we're still P12 and there's still some people yet to make their second pit stop. So we could somehow finesse our way into some points positions but obviously it's a long way to the end. We have to do the job of defending our position then. But here we are, on to lap 15, up in P11, it's going to be P10, and P9 as well, as we get Leclerc just at the end there. So Leclerc, one of the Ferrari cars, is behind not only myself, but behind Grosjean as well. So he's going to pass Grosjean before he even gets to me. So I'm hoping that Roman can do us a solid, basically, and try and hold him up as best he can. And we've got some more positions to get in this Grand Prix. It's the McLarens now pit of Sainz and also the Racing Point of Stroll. Lap 17, 10 laps to go in this Grand Prix. And we're up in P7. Absolutely bonkers. Bonkers stuff. This one stop is... So it's a miracle worker right now at this French Grand Prix. That's the only way I can really explain it. And so with 10 laps to go in this Grand Prix, like I said, it's all about these guys passing us slower guys. And at the moment, Leclerc is still stuck behind Romain Grosjean on the following lap. You've got both Red Bulls stuck behind Ocon in the Renault. So, yeah, like I said, Paul Ricard, you might not think it due to the long back straight. It's actually very hard to overtake because everyone's getting some good slipstream down there. So it's Hamilton that leads. KVYAT at the moment is in P2 in an AlphaTauri. The battle for P3 is between Ricciardo and Raikkonen. Behind these guys, then, it is Bottas and Vettel, I believe. But a nice side-by-side bit of action there. Ricciardo gets the jump, and so Ricciardo up into P3 of this Grand Prix. But there is Bottas and Vettel. I would assume those two would eventually overtake all three of those guys, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, and KVYAT. But you never know, because only now is Leclerc getting past Grosjean. So Leclerc's up into P8, and now this is where maybe the pressure starts to be applied to us. How well can we do? Can we even defend against a Ferrari car? I don't know, because it is very tricky in Sector 3. You saw when GASLY tried to get down the inside of me whilst I was going wide and understeering. It's tough, because if you make a mistake, you're going to get spun around through no fault of the man you're trying to overtake. And you can see there, Leclerc trying to get around the outside of me into the last corner. I'm having none of it. Defensive as ever on the inside. It's such a tight bit of the circuit. It's useless trying to go around the outside. Even I wouldn't have tried to go around the outside of a car, probably, at that corner. So Leclerc not only loses the battle with me, he loses a place to Grosjean, and he's now in a battle with Ocon. Ocon's going side by side with Leclerc into turns 1 and 2. Fantastic stuff. Ocon down the inside there. Leclerc having to really fight for this and try and maintain the P9 position as it stands. He pushes Ocon off, and it does get that, and now Ocon is being attacked by the Red Bull car of Max Verstappen. But there's a big opportunity for me, for Raikkonen, Ricciardo, KVYAT, Grosjean here. Leclerc gets back past Grosjean, though. We're now going through these 10 laps now, so we're probably about, 7 laps to go, 6 laps to go in this Grand Prix, I think, as it stands on this lap. Leclerc back through, up into P8. We maintain the P7, and we just keep on going, and I'm just praying that we can pull this through as we now move on. Like I said, 7 laps to go. Like I said, on lap 20 now here, we are on board, and you can see using Rich Mix and ERS just on this straight alone, because I'm trying to save fuel in ERS everywhere else to make sure I can try and avoid this. But here comes Leclerc. He's passed us with DRS. We try as hard as we can to go late on the brakes. Very fine stuff there. Little bit of contact that was on the sidewall, but we maintain the position there as Leclerc got a real tight apex on that corner. So we live to fight for another day for P7. Lap 21 now. Again, in standard fuel mixture right now. Trying to save it. Now up into Rich, using ERS on the exit to get a good exit speed, but Leclerc is right under our rear wing, and this time it feels like this may be for good as Leclerc flies past us, and I think that is for good. No chance now. I mean, already you can see mid-apex he's getting away from us in the understeer. I'm getting there. So Leclerc has unfortunately overtaken us, and we're down to P8, but let's still keep pushing. Let's still keep fighting, because we've still got faster cars behind us and Max Verstappen, and we need to try and keep the position here, because still the likes of KVYAT, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, they're all still up there. I think at this stage they've been overtaken by both Bottas and Vettel, but they're still going to get a lofty P4, 5 and 6. So if we can just try and get P8, that will limit the damage to our rivals at AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo and Renault, of course. But at this stage now, 2 laps to go in this Grand Prix, proving a little bit difficult. Verstappen is gaining every single lap. I look behind me and he's getting closer and closer, and this time he might try dive around the outside. We go defensive, we just slow the thing down. Very close mid-apex there as Verstappen's tucked up right behind us, but he slows down on the exit, gets a really poor launch, and Sainz, that is in the McLaren, gets a great exit, and now he's down the inside. So these two will go battling, and they're going to go side by side. Sainz overtakes him very easily, though, actually. So the McLaren looking very punchy indeed now at the very end of the Grand Prix. So we've now maybe got a different person trying to overtake us for P7 as we go back to our POV through this last sector. 1 lap to go. Once we get to the end of this lap, you can see how poor we are in this last sector. But honestly, because it's so tight, it's like Monaco or Hungary. It's so hard to pass. Sainz tries it around the outside. You can see how much quicker they are, but we're just placing the car correctly. Not doing much, wrong there. We're just placing the car on the racing line. He's trying to go around the outside and just can't keep it through. And so Sainz has to go side by side with Verstappen once again there. And looking behind on the top left in the mirrors as well, I think the McLaren's got that. And yes, he has. He's maintained that. Fair play. And so he maintains the P9. But here we are. Last lap of the Grand Prix. This is it. The nerves settle in, but, we've, planned for this quite nicely with a lot of fuel, so we can be in rich mix this entire lap, and we should have enough ERS to deploy all the way down the back straight and the straight after into Sector 3, hopefully. So here we are, one last launch down this straight. The McLaren is going to be quite close to us. He's actually massively close with DRS, and so he goes for the move, and even with all the ERS in the world, can we try and keep this? Sainz on the outside, it's very late. And we leave him the space, but we get the job done. We push him wide and now use some more ERS on the exit there. We're going to use all of it, in fact, because we don't need any more in the next few corners in the last sector. Lewis Hamilton goes on to win this Grand Prix, I'm pretty sure, from Valtteri Bottas, Sebastian Vettel. Then you've got KVYAT, Ricardo Raikkonen P6, Leclerc P7, the fast lap of the Grand Prix, and then here we are in P8 as Bottas gets that, but we are still defending. Sainz goes around the outside. We go very slow at the corner where Gasly spun. We maintain track position, use a bit more overtake mode just at the end here. Nice and easy, just place the car correctly at the racing line. They can't do anything. Sainz tries a half-hearted dive. It's not going to work, and so we're going to come through for the hardest fought P8 I feel we've ever got this season so far. Very, very good race. One that I didn't expect. That strategy worked miracles for us, but it doesn't matter because the likes of KVYAT are up in P4. They have all done a madness. Driver of the day, Dan Ricciardo. What a bonkers race for some of the midfield guys today.
We've witnessed some great battles around Paul Ricard today, and they've taken a fantastic win. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection, a shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot. A well-earned victory for Mercedes.
So like I said there, Hamilton wins, Bottas second, Vettel did get up into third, so that will confirm KVYAT will be in P4, Ricciardo P5, Raikkonen P6, but those three getting that result, that's a madness. We've been talking about, being rivals with AlphaTauri, Renault, Alfa Romeo, and those guys have just done a great job. They've got 12 points, 10 and 8 respectively, and we've only just got that P8 that gives us 4 points. So in the championship, AlphaTauri do get up into P6, like I said they would, and overtake Renault. Renault down to P7, but they do gain points on us because Ricciardo outscored us today. So even though they drop down and they're maybe our next kind of rival to look up to in the table, they've increased their points gap. So it was a fantastic race, a really mega miracle of a strategy for us today, for us to get into P8. But you clearly saw the other midfield guys that had a little bit more pace than us. They capitalized so much. Like if we had the same pace we showed in Canada or Spain or whatever today, we would have been up in P4. But unfortunately, we just didn't. As has been the case in the last 2 episodes, we've not really moved forward with the R&D. And if you're not moving forward, like I said, you just move backwards in F1. So we're really, I'm very much anticipating this major front downforce upgrade next episode. And now that I've said that, just means I've jinxed it, and it's probably going to fail on the car, unfortunately. So you can kind of count that back on me in the comments below of next episode. But at least we get both sponsor objectives, so a lot of cash injection at the end of this episode. Again, we hit minus 50 on damages, so we don't get the kind of 50 bonus there for just a payout. But we are now well over 3 million. We're on $3.68 million, so a lot of cash, some good money to invest in an HQ next episode. Potentially also a new sponsor, because we've got Level Acclaim 10 as well, so exciting times for the home Grand Prix next time out. But till then, guys, if you did enjoy this episode, be sure to smash that like button. What a strategy call there for us and a load of the midfield guys. Bonkers race there. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.